Cybertruck is out, it is real, and it can do everything better than a diesel truck. Absolutely everything, and I do mean everything, including towing. Yes, of course, it is the ultimate towing machine, or is it? Well, I've got the bearded Tesla guy here with me to help me understand just how amazing it is and what, if any, shortcomings there are. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. Hey man, so good to see you. I have wanted to have you on forever, and we've tried to make it happen a couple times, and we both get busy. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you again. Just saw you here, a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, in
Maybe a week
Austria.
ago.
Yeah, it was about a
How
week
have you
ago, and
been?
I shall see you again in another week
Yeah.
because we are, of course, going to both be at the big event in Michigan. We'll be here. Let's see, I'm on this one right about here, and you're hidden here right next to me. So that's pretty exciting. So if you're going to be in Michigan, by all means, come out, join us, have some fun. We're doing a light show. We're going to have some big speakers: Sandy Monroe, Jordan Giesecke, you name it. But don't keep naming because then we run out of guests and it gets very, very sad. Towing. So let's start with the first part of the story. Our friends at EVject let you borrow their truck to drive it around. What was that about?
Yeah. So EVject, they were sponsoring an event for Make-A-Wish in Central Florida. And I was talking to them because they're working on a CCS version of the EVject, which is great. And just so happened to bring up the fact that their Cybertruck was supposed to be delivered to Orlando, and they were having issues with the carrier. So basically canceled, and they were scrambling. I said, well, I can deliver it. That's not a problem. I can fly out to Salt Lake City, Utah, and drive a Cybertruck to Central Florida. Not a problem. And then it came, well, we also got to get to California thereafter. Okay. Well, yeah, let's just do it. So, long story short, that was the plan. Flew in, picked up the truck. We had a lot of fun. The engineer there, Eric, we were like best buds now. We were having a lot of fun. And long story short, before we left, it's the last day of the quarter, a Saturday there in Salt Lake City, and it just so happened two customers' financing couldn't get cleared up all the way by the end of the day. So they had two Cybertrucks. They were just going through the list of local people trying to find somebody to match this to. So I was like, hey, here's my reservation number, ready to go. And things for whatever reason ended up working out like the last hour of the last day of the quarter, and I got to leave with one of those Cybertrucks. Pretty crazy. So it went from being a road trip to a towing trip.
But then we've got a new problem, Justin. You're in Salt Lake City. You don't live in Salt Lake City, and you've got just one you and no second driver. How on earth are you going to get all the way back with two Cybertrucks?
Yeah, and that's where the towing story begins. So I
So,
think
what kind of
officially the
trailer did you
first,
get?
it was a text trailer. It's a nice trailer, 24 foot roughly, but trailer, truck, and all gear, 9,000 546 pounds. So
Wow.
right there towards the top of the towing capacity of the truck, heavy load, pretty exciting.
Pretty exciting. So now you're in Salt Lake City and you just have a quick jaunt all the way across the country to do. Tell us about that. How'd that work out?
Yeah, I mean, 2,400 miles or so through the mountains and across the plains. Unfortunately, I was stuck in weather the entire way. I was like right behind the storm. So I had these winds to combat, but I got to say, some pretty incredible things happening with the Cybertruck while it's towing. If you have any experience towing, as you're passing semis, as semis are passing you, you tend to get blown around a lot because the load behind you kind of acts like a sail. It's pretty normal, and even the most aerodynamic trailers have this issue. But the Cybertruck, for whatever reason, just kind of felt so planted, and I suspect it's some voodoo magic happening with those rear wheels, honestly. And speaking of rear wheels, I really thought it was going to be awkward towing with four-wheel steer, and man, it was amazing. A couple of the things, the other thing that was I thought was going to be awkward, the trailer brake, the manual brake control being able to turn it on the steering wheel. Like that's so weird. Why would that doesn't make any sense? But it makes total sense. Your hand is right there, and it just works so well. So I mean, there were just so many things about it where I was like, well, maybe this is going to be awkward. Hopefully, this is an okay towing experience. It was awesome. I was able to get in some really tight spaces, and I only had to unhook one time, fortunately, because most of my driving was done in the second half of the day when the chargers were less busy. So I don't know, 25-ish charging stops, and I unhooked one time. So pretty lucky. But it wasn't because the charging stalls were set up well for towing.
So let's talk about that. There are, anyone who's done road trips may have seen one or two pull through spots at the end of a station. You were fortunate enough. Did you have a plan on how to find which ones would have that?
No, basically, when I was headed to the next charging stop, I mean, the range when you're towing that kind of a load isn't 200, 250 miles. So you're limited on where you're going next. It's pretty much until you get to the edges of the country, West Coast and East Coast. That spacing in the middle of the country is about 100 miles, 90, 80 miles. So you can make it, 80 to 100 miles, no problem. You can't make it 200 miles. So you get one option. So you basically just look at the map. What's this parking lot look like? Am I going to have an issue? And fortunately, I was able to make everything work. I will say, even the stations that had a pull-in stall for towing, they were not well thought out, unfortunately. So, for example, I don't remember exactly which stop it was. It was in the back of a Taco Bell parking lot. The pull-in stall was right behind the drive-through where the windows are. So you literally have to go the wrong way through the drive-through where people are paying and getting their food to be able to go straight into that stall. And because it's so tight back there, that's the only way that you'd be able to pull into that particular stall. So there were very few stalls with these, and the ones that were, they were never like, "Oh, this makes perfect sense to pull your truck straight in."
That's
Yeah.
almost hilarious. The idea of, hey guys, you got to stop ordering tacos for a minute. I need to drive the wrong way. What in the hell is this guy doing?
Well, they were stopped anyways because they were trying to figure out what the heck is going on. So it worked out perfect.
And because you've got, and what a spectacle, a Cybertruck,
Yeah.
the very first weeks towing a Cybertruck. Oh, and yeah, there's a lot of confusion there because when you're looking at stations that are a good 100 and then another 100 miles, you don't get to get that last 10, 20, 25% out of your battery. It's time we just have to charge. So,
That's right.
in those cases, if the chargers were absolutely everywhere, you could have probably trimmed what, 10, 15% of your stops, eliminated two, three, four
Easily.
stops. Yeah.
Easily. Yeah.
But because they are still a bit spaced out, you had to recharge often sooner than you wanted. So when you're doing that, and again, you said, I remember following it on X. I was like, oh, wow, he's up to 16. He must be home. Oh, I just hit refresh. He's at 18. He's charged 18 times now, and he is not home. And the count kept racking up. So you said a good 23 to 25 times you had to stop. Uh,
Yes, and unfortunately, because you don't really have backup options, it's 100%. Like
right,
the worst to charge. I hate sitting at chargers for an hour every
right.
time. So I road trip a ton, and traditionally I do about 1,000 miles a day when I'm crossing the country in our Model Y. I was able to get 400 to 500 miles in a day of driving. It was
Mm.
intense.
That's a
But
little bit brutal. And as everyone who's done this knows, once you get to 80%, the curve really slows down. And when you get to 90, 95, and I tell you that last 2% feels like it takes forever because it is just topping it off. Don't want to spill the juice, as it were. So if you're doing, so for the ultimate hauling machine, what I might hear you saying is that it isn't quite there yet, uh, because the range especially when towing, is not spectacular. Um, and based on what you're saying, it looks like you were probably getting 100, to a charge, but only doing about 100 because of safety margins. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it other than range, it was amazing towing experience. I've never experienced towing as um, natural, as easy as it was in Cybertruck. It's just a beast towing. You have ample power. You never feel like you're overwhelming the powertrain. And because of whatever voodoo magic is happening behind the software, just how stable it was incredible. But at the end of the day, if you have to stop every hour, hour and a half, and charge for an hour, that is not fun. And that's where you start looking at the range extender. How's this thing going to charge? Is it going to charge as fast? Is it in parallel? Or is it slower? But that's going to really change things because if you can go a couple 100 miles, that really opens up things. And most people are not going to tow 10,000 pounds, 24 or 2,500 miles. That's just kind of insane. Most people are going to tow to the lake over the weekend, maybe, 150 miles or, maybe up to 400 miles in another state, right? So that wouldn't be bad at all, even as it sits right now.
Especially for moving your little boat around or your work trailer. Those applications are solved. But I will tell you, I had a chance to tow with my brother in his F-150, his trailer full of motorbikes. We went from about Seattle to Boise, Idaho, and we were stopping every 2 hours for gas. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's you don't understand how hauling something that big and bulky at highway speeds just destroys your fuel economy. And it's,
Yeah.
but when you can pull in, juice it all the way back up in the time it takes to use the bathroom, because there were two of us, one could stand at the pump while the other was using the bathroom. Uh, it was doable. So, what I hear you saying is it needs, of course, a bit more range, which we believe is coming both because of the range extender and because chemistries just keep improving. But really, what we need is twice as many stations in between the ones we don't have now, and having more pull through chargers that make sense. Not just having them, but having them in a way that doesn't require you to evacuate the Taco Bell drive through in order to use them. Uh, or have Optimus standing by to unhook your trailer. Now, well, okay, now we're getting a little crazy. So the ultimate towing machine, what I hear you saying is, yeah, kind of. Brian was joking, but sure, if you're not going too darn far. And if you are
Yeah.
going too darn far, it may not be the right tool for the job just yet.
Yeah, I think that is the realist, fair, and honest way to look at where it is today. Honestly, when I got to, I think, Alabama, Georgia, I mean, that's when you start getting finally, we've got V3s every 60 miles or something. And that means you can stop for 30 minutes at a time. That changes everything. So it's not still quite as fast as a mile wide without towing, but it's much, much faster to be able to stop for 30 minutes, drive another hour and a half, 30 minutes, hour and a half, that kind of thing.
Just better in all ways. And for that matter, I guess I would ask, did you use any third-party chargers or just the good network?
Just a good network. I was not playing any games with risking any issues with the charger not activating. It was, an hour is enough. You don't need to add another hour in troubleshooting and a failure somewhere. So, yeah,
That's
Tesla's, I don't mess with the other networks. It's just
that
not worth it.
That's hilarious. So, guys, in the comments, what did we miss? What do we misunderstand? Are you coming to Michigan to meet us and John Stringer and Jan from Tesla Fix and Lars from Best in Tesla and so many more? Too many more to mention. Dr. Scott Walter, Dr. Know It All, Doctor, technically, of law, Mike Lichterman. There are a Dr. Carl Bloss. Yeah, we have 4 doctors on the panel. None of them will check my rash. I keep asking, but they have offered graciously to diagram a sentence for me. So, guys, let us know, and everybody else, like, subscribe, smash thumbs as you do, and stay tuned, stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots on your Cybertruck road trip adventure.